Hey folks, we have the best-selling author of the Monster Hunter series, Larry Correia, here to talk about his brand new book, In Defense of the Second Amendment. Stay tuned, you're not going to want to miss this discussion with Larry Correia. Larry Correia, congratulations! Fantastic new book, a work of nonfiction, In Defense of the Second Amendment by Regnery. Well, first of all, let's just start. How does a famous best-selling novelist of, among other things, the Monster Hunter series, how do you decide that you're going to write a great piece of nonfiction in defense of the Second Amendment? How do you come about deciding, hey, I'm going to try something new?
Well, actually, it was Regnery approached me because one of the editors there, Tony Daniel, used to be one of my editors for my thriller series. And what it was is in the wake of the Bruin Supreme Court decision, they said, we want to have a handy-dandy guide to the Second Amendment debate. We want to have a book for people to, to be able to debate this and also to give defense sitters and educate them on the issue. They said, who do we know who A, is a really good writer, and B, knows a lot about guns? And Tony said, hey, I got the guy. Because before I was a novelist, I did all sorts of gun stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I've been involved in this for coming up on 30 years now. Ever since I was a young man, I got involved in gun rights, and I've done all sorts of stuff on that front. And so I was honored to be given the opportunity. And this is a passion project for me, I guess you could say, in that I love the Second Amendment. I love firearms. I love what they symbolize for America. And so it's something that I would have done this for free. I didn't, which is nice. But, right. It was an opportunity to do this, and I really hope that people like the book, and so far it's being extremely well received, so I'm really excited.
The mere fact that you wrote this book, in and of itself, is a tremendous achievement and a value add to the Second Amendment movement, because you are a true intellectual. You're an artist. You're a novelist. You're a cultural icon in parts of America, and yet you are willing to take the time to stand up as an American patriot and talk about our fundamental rights, the right to keep and bear arms as found in the U.S. Constitution. And I think that we need more and more people like you standing up and doing the same. So how has this book been received? How has the movement said, thank you, Larry, for all of the great work you did on this?
Extremely good. I don't have the actual sales numbers for the first week yet, but people have been loving it, and the reaction is great. The reviews are fantastic. At first, there was a whole bunch of the one-star hate reviews before the book came out, which was always hilarious. That just amuses me to no end. And then all the people who are just making up wild. Larry says this and this and this. I was like, none of that's in the book, and that's not. I actually say the opposite. But now actual real people, they're enjoying it, and so far what it seems to be is the reaction is, wow, this guy puts into words and articulates an argument that I already feel. I mean, this is something I feel. This is something I feel in my soul, and it's something I want to fight for, but I've not been able to pin people down on this. I've not been able to, hammer them with the facts or give an emotional argument that responds to this stuff. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of really good resources out there for gun owners to debate this subject, but a lot of them tend to be very dry. They tend to be academic or statistical in nature, which is fine. That serves a very valuable purpose. But I wanted to do something where I could just talk to regular people, just colloquially, having a conversation. And that's what I set out for. And a lot of the other side, and a lot of the fence sitters, the argument's an emotional one rather than a logical one too. So I went there. I went emotional too, because gun owners, we're not aloof beings. We have feelings too. And I went into why we feel the way we feel. And a lot of this stuff, so logic and facts are already on our side, but the emotional stuff is too, because people don't want to be defenseless. People don't want to be helpless. They don't want to be left alone when they call 911 and the state says, sorry, good luck, you're on your own. And also there's these elements of people don't like being bossed around by their self-proclaimed moral betters. And so I get into those emotions, and I get into all this, and I back everything up with facts and figures and actual events and history, and I just try to hammer it, but in a way that's entertaining, and people will be able to pass it on to their friends.
Well, that's right. And again, Larry, this book, In Defense of the Second Amendment, is truly that. It is a defense of the Second Amendment for ordinary Americans that care about this issue to read it and to really force multiply what your effort is. They can take the information and they can take it to their gun clubs, they can take it to their workplace, they can take it to their, places they hang out, to Thanksgiving dinner, whatever, and talk about these issues. So let's talk a little bit about, and I mean, you're a novelist, so you really do understand the importance of storytelling to the human experience. That people going all the way back to even before the time of the written word were communicating with stories, whether it be pictures on walls, but these were all about storytelling. And since you're a best-selling novelist of the Monster Hunter series, you really are excellent at telling stories. So in light of that, why don't you give us an example, Larry, of how perhaps you combine facts, statistics, arguments, logic with the emotive associations associated with telling stories. Like when someone comes up and says, hey, Larry, guns are terrible because, for example, crazy people go in and they shoot up schools, and that's terrible. Like, how do you respond to that in a way that touches not only on logic and facts and the realities of the world we know, but also on sort of that appeal to emotion that a lot of people just want to make sure they're doing the right thing?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I have a whole big section on reacting to the thing about the mass shootings. In fact, that's what I opened the book with, is I talk about that visceral reaction that every gun owner who pays attention to this stuff in America feels. Every time this comes on the news that something bad happened, and there's this deep down, this guilty feeling that we get because we know we're about to get hammered, we're about to get attacked, we're about to get just maligned and belittled and insulted. And we also know that it has nothing to do with us. And it wasn't us, and it wasn't us, and it wasn't our people. And if that bad guy has any trait at all that can be conflated with us, they're going to do that. They're going to blame us. And if it doesn't have anything to do with us, they'll blame us at first until the facts come out, and then it'll go out of the news cycle. When I get into this, I get to I want to fight back, and that's one thing I did as a CCW instructor for a lot of years. I taught a lot of people to carry guns, because I am a big, huge proponent of people being able to respond. And when it comes to the things like a mass killing, a mass shooter, what stops them is a violent response, period. Just a violent response is what stops these guys almost every time. That violent response can either be fast by someone who's there, or it can be slow because you wait for the cops. That's it. It's that simple. And I go into events, and I tell the story of different events where people didn't have that immediate response and they had to wait for the cops, and what the aftermath was, and the numbers are always terrible. And then I go into the ones where people could fight back, where people were allowed to fight back, and it's a drastically different thing. Bad guy comes in, does horrible things, and is stopped before he can do more. I wrote about the Greenwood Park Mall shooting in Indiana that happened last year. That situation, horrible situation. Bad guy comes in, he's got multiple guns, he's got ammo, he's ready to shoot a whole bunch of people in the mall. He starts shooting. Within 15 seconds, a young man in the crowd reacts, draws his firearm from 43 yards away, engages the bad guy, shoots him, approaches up, shoots him some more, kills him dead. So this young man, he's in his early 20s, was carrying this gun and was able to save who knows how many lives. How many more innocent people would this crazy guy have killed if this young man hadn't been there? And so it's emotions like that too, But the other side has been the one that's kind of weaponized narrative for way too long, and we've let them get away with it. Too many people on our side are like, we got the facts, we got the logic. That's true, but that's not how a lot of the people that in the middle who vote, that's not how they're swayed.
Yeah, you're right, Larry. Exactly right. And Larry, let me ask you, how do you react to the fact that if you look at our quote-unquote betters, the elites of society, right, whether it be the political elites, the Joe Bidens, the Chuck Schumers of the world, whether it be the religious elites, such as the Pope that's surrounded by a wall of the Vatican, whether it be the royal elites, whether it be the kings and queens of England and the princes and the and so on at their royal weddings, whether it be the Hollywood elites with all the firepower at the Oscars and so on. How do you incorporate into your argument, Larry, the fact that the elites always have the benefit of guns, right? But they don't want us to have the benefit of guns. How does that square up, and how do you use that to tell our story, Larry?
Well, the thing is, they don't care if we die. I mean, ultimately, the vultures, when I say vultures, that's the people that are perched waiting for bloodshed so they can swoop in and take advantage of it. Regular people, us getting killed by criminals, is to them a perk. That's just another stat for them to weaponize. They truly don't care. They live in gated communities. They live in safe places. They don't live in places where there's petty crime. Or if they do, if they're important people, they've got their armed bodyguards. Michael Bloomberg has donated, huge sums of money, far more than the NRA, to anti-gun organizations. And he's a billionaire. He's got a cadre of security guards. These guys are always protected, but they don't want to give us that, because to them, our elite betters, we're just peasants. Our lives and deaths are irrelevant to them. We're just statistics that they can use. Ultimately, the only people that care about our lives are us. And yeah, there's a lot of good agents of the state who are courageous. I mean, there's cops who will risk their lives, who will run towards the sound of gunfire. I know a lot of them. I've trained with them. I know guys that, like, bad things happen and boom, they are going as fast as they can toward the sounds of gunfire to try to save whoever they can. I'm talking heroes. Others are Uvalde. They're human, and some suck, some are great. But honestly, the only real person that you can count on to defend yourself is you. You're it. Anything else, you're gambling on the courage and conviction and training and commitment of a third person. And they might not care. And we've seen around America where the state doesn't care. And we've seen too many Americans who've abdicated their responsibilities to the state, and they say, well, I'm not going to defend myself. The state will save me. Only like 2020 showed us, no, they won't. And ultimately that wakes a lot of people up. And that's a visceral reaction for someone to get slapped in the face and have been their whole life. I'm anti-gun. I don't like guns. We don't need guns. Why do you need an AR-15? Why do you need a pistol? Just call the police. Just call 911. Yeah. 2020 comes along and it's like, 911, sorry, good luck. You're on your own. We can't come. And that woke a lot of people up, and it's very visceral. So that's emotional right there.
Well, Larry Correia, the author of In Defense of the Second Amendment, a new book out by Regnery Publishing, a great book defending the Second Amendment. Larry, let me ask you this. What is you raise a very good point about this distinction between sort of the betters, the elites of society that feel that they can rely on either their private security guards or police for their protection, maybe their gated communities, versus sort of the rest of us. My question is, what do you think is the ultimate goal of the disarmament lobby? In other words, most of these gun control laws that we talk about nowadays have nothing to do with criminals, has nothing to do with psychopaths or terrorists. It seems to be things like this, pistol with stabilizing brace issue. This has nothing to do with stopping crime. This has everything to do with harassing, gun owners that want to use their Second Amendment rights in the Constitution. So I guess the question I have for you, Larry, based on all your research and work in your book, In Defense of the Second Amendment, what is the real goal of the disarmament lobby? Like, if they could wake up tomorrow and all of us were disarmed, like, what's their purpose? What's the goal? What do they hope to accomplish here? It doesn't seem to be about public safety as far as I can tell.
No, and I divide... So real fast, before I get to what the end goal of it is, I got to divide the anti-gun side into two camps, basically. The people who, in the word of Stalin, are the useful idiots. The people who can be swayed by emotion to just empower the elite. The elite are the vultures. They're the ones who everything becomes, gun control, gun control, gun control. What do they want? What is their ultimate goal? I believe people like that look at communist China and the government of Xi Jinping, and they look at that and they say, that's aspirational. We would like to be able to do that. Social credit score? That sounds fantastic. Silencing anyone who disagrees with us? That sounds wonderful. Where just our expert opinion determines all policy in society, and we can silence anyone who disagrees with us? That sounds great. The problem is you can't have a nation like that with an armed populace. That's impossible. Because it's the old boil the frog slowly. If you boil the frog too fast, the frog jumps out of the pot. And they've been boiling the frog for a long time, but honestly, to get to where they want to go, the last hurdle is to have a disarmed populace. Once you have a disarmed populace, then who cares? You can do whatever you want. What's your recourse? You're going to complain in the press that they control? First Amendment is now irrelevant. You can't congregate with your friends. We've seen if they want, they'll just say, you can't congregate anymore. We're going to find a reason. We're just going to put you in a camp for your own safety. What are you going to do? You're not going to fight back. The state has a monopoly on force at that point. And so it's extremely nefarious, and it's a long-term process that we've been fighting for a very long time. This has been a generational battle against basically people who are in favor of freedom and people who are in favor of control. And it's kind of the ultimate linchpin of what the Second Amendment debate is about. And I spend a lot of the book talking about practical, everyday matters, normal crime, normal criminals, normal events. But yeah, I do get into this. I get into what the Second Amendment is really for, why it's the big red button on the Constitution. And yeah, so what they want, no good will come from. It'll be good for them. We'll put it that way. Bad for the rest of us.
I think you make excellent points there, Larry. And again, in your book, In Defense of the Second Amendment, which you've just released, a great book, a lot of great points you've made in there. But there's no doubt that what made the American experiment unique was that we, you and I, and the people watching this, we're citizens. We're not serfs. We're not subjects. We're citizens. And going all the way back to Roman times, as you know, Larry, to be a citizen required that you had the right to vote, a say in society. You had the right to property that you could, accumulate and use as your own, and a right to bear arms, the right to protect yourself and your families. That's what makes a citizen and distinguishes a citizen from a serf, a subject, or slave, going all the way back to Greco-Roman times. And the American founders really understood this and wrote a constitution to try to preserve, citizenship. And there are certainly people out there you reference who really do want us to be subjects and serfs because they think they are our betters. Okay, folks, hope you enjoyed that interview with Larry Correia, author of In Defense of the Second Amendment. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. We'll see you again soon here at the Four Boxes Diner. All right.
Orders up. Table 2A.